is going on, everybody? Welcome to the 2024 season of the Adjusted Line Play Report. Let's go. Come on, baby. Let's go. All right, we're going to do a Thursday night theory episode here for you folks. And we are going to kick it off on Thursday Night Football with Buffalo versus Miami and give you a little insight into how this all works, what the heck these numbers mean. So really, when we're looking at this, we're going to look at the away team first always. Buffalo is the away team here, Miami the home team. Again, we got the Vegas line here, 2.5 to the positive for Miami. So 2.5 point favorites for Miami, 48.5 Vegas game total, giving Miami a 25.5 team implied total and Buffalo a 23 point team implied total. Getting into the offensive and defensive line play, we're looking at Buffalo here. Offensive pass protection up here versus offensive pass DVOA. What's the difference? Well, offensive pass protection versus the defensive pass rush is essentially the adjusted sack rate. And to give a really quick overview of what that is, adjusted sack rate, not all sacks are created equal. If your defense is giving up or getting a sack on 3rd and 15, that's kind of expected, versus getting a sack on maybe 2nd down and 2 yards to go, that's a little bit more unexpected. That's going to be weighted a little bit heavier than the one that was on 3rd and 15. Likewise, with your pass protection, if you're giving up a sack on 3rd and 15, a little bit more expected. If you're giving up a sack on 2nd and 2, maybe your offensive line isn't that good, and you should weight that a little bit differently. So that's kind of how the offensive pass protection and defensive pass rush work here. Buffalo number 19, Miami number 1 in that defensive pass rush category. So number 1 adjusted sack rate here. Important to remind people that this is not a pressure rate. Certain defenses are a lot better at generating pressure, but they might not generate these sacks. And again, it's adjusted. So maybe Miami only had 2 sacks last game, but they came in unlikely scenarios, and now they're the number 1 rated pass rush defense. So that's how that works. The DVOA is a little bit differently. It takes every single play from the entire season and averages it out in terms of situation, down and distance, you name it. And it puts basically an average play for that particular scenario. I got all this data, and then it normalizes it for that season. So if you're in 2nd down and 5 and you run to the right and you're up by 6 points, this is a standard run play. That's kind of how that works. If you're above that mark, you get a positive DVOA. If you're below that mark, you get a negative aspect for that particular play. And then it's a percentage-based outcome. So, if you're plus 10 on the DVOA, that means you're 10% better than the average team would be in those scenarios. So that's kind of how that works. So that's the DVOA portion. And then we're going to do that for the home team, and that will be it. So looking at that offensive pass protection versus the defensive pass rush, again, that's the adjusted sack rate. This is suggestive that Miami might be getting after Buffalo. They could generate a few sacks in this game that you might otherwise not expect. Also, if they're going to be generating sacks, it could be in a need for Buffalo to get that ball out a little bit quicker. So maybe they're going to need a little bit quicker passes. That could be off to Cook out of the backfield. That could be the tight end group a lot of times, or any of those slot receivers that are running more of the underneath routes. And to my knowledge, I believe that is Khalil Shakir on this particular offense. So those would be the 3 people that would be interested in the pass game. Interesting thing about this, Buffalo actually blasted Miami. They played them 3 times last year, and pretty much every single game, Josh Allen had a tremendous game. I think he was over 300 yards or 275 in all 3 of those. Multiple touchdowns, multiple wide receivers having over 100 yards and a touchdown in a lot of these games. So that's kind of interesting to note. Maybe if they're getting the ball out a bit quicker, you're looking at the tight ends. Especially in an island game, they're probably going to be a lot less owned than some people may think. Getting into the pass DVOA, though, this is saying Buffalo should be very successful when they do pass it. Sure, they might be under pressure and need to get the ball out a little bit quicker, but number 1 pass DVOA versus number 29 from Miami. To go along with what happened last season, this is suggestive that Buffalo is going to be very successful passing the ball, especially in an island game. In a relatively high Vegas game total, this is one where I'd be comfortable actually getting Josh Allen as my MVP. He does spread the ball around. He also runs it in himself. So this is a situation where I'd be comfortable with him as my MVP or my captain spot for this particular game. He should be very successful there. History has shown us that last year. The adjusted line play report is showing us this year. So offensive run blocking. So that was all pass game stuff for the away team. We're going to get into the run blocking. So run blocking, we have the standard, how are they doing against the team, and then also the DVOA, which is taking into context historical averages. So Buffalo run blocking at number 26, Miami run stopping at 25, suggesting Buffalo should be okay running the ball. On any given play, they should be a little bit better than that Miami defensive front. Getting into the DVOA aspect, though, how are they doing compared to how a normal team would perform? Buffalo ranked 19th, Miami 13th. So this is actually suggestive that, maybe on a play-to-play basis, the offensive line is doing okay, but then when you look at the results of the actual end play, maybe they're not going to be all that well. So a scenario where maybe I'm fading the run game here a little bit for Buffalo. Also, if they're going to be able to pass the ball pretty effectively, that means they're probably going to be, if they are struggling running the ball, they might be finding themselves in third down situations, but able to extend drives. And then they might end up hitting a wall once they get in a little bit closer. So Buffalo's kicker, I think Tyler Bass is in play too, in terms of getting maybe 3 field goal attempts in this particular matchup as well. So keep that in mind. A lot of times if I see that they might struggle in a run game and they're super effective in the pass game or vice versa, that tends to lead to the kickers having a little bit better of a game and leading to quite a few attempts there. So that's it for the away team there on Buffalo. Miami, let's get into there. So offensive pass protection, again, remember this is adjusted sack rate. Buffalo number 3 in adjusted sack rate. Interesting there with Miami at number 1. So both of these defenses could get sacks in this particular matchup. Don't be afraid to, start them potentially if you think that's going to lead to some other, fumble sack, strip sack type opportunities. The Miami pass protection is at number 18, which is very similar to Buffalo's. So same scenario there. They might need to get the ball out a little bit quicker for their particular pass games to work if they're going to be under duress. In terms of the pass DVOA, we see Miami top 10 at number 10. Buffalo's defensive pass DVOA at number 18. So this is suggestive that Miami will be effective passing the ball, which is good for that, especially if Buffalo is moving the ball and scoring points. Miami does seem like they will be able to move the ball as well on offense through the air. So that's Tua, that's going to be Tyreek Hill, and that's going to be Jalen Waddle. It doesn't lead to much else. I know there's questions about whether or not Devon Achane will be starting or playing at all in this game. I haven't heard anything yet in terms of his availability, but he was used pretty extensively in the pass game last week, and if he's active, I would expect him to play a pretty decent role in the pass game and maybe take a step back in the rushing game to cede carries to let Jeff Wilson and their rookie take on all of that pounding. So that'd be Jalen Wright is expected to get his first play opportunity in this particular game. So I expect them to take those carries away from Achane, and he would be more used as a pass game weapon in this particular game. So that's the home game pass side. Let's go look at the run blocking. We do see 2 red ones here for Miami, number 27 in run blocking, number 24 in run DVOA. And then we have Buffalo inside the top half of teams in the run stopping and run DVOA there. So I would expect Miami to actually struggle in the run game here, especially if I was correct in my assessment of how they're going to use Achane in here if he does play. I think he's going to be more of a pass game role to take the beating off of him and put it more on to Jeff Wilson and Jalen Wright, who maybe can absorb that a little bit better than Achane during his banged up, part of the season. So I would say in this scenario, Miami's really going to struggle to run the ball, especially if they don't have Achane going. Again, that could lead to field goals, especially if their pass game is humming and moving the ball. They might just run into scenarios where they stall out because it's 3rd and 1 and they just can't get that 1 yard because of their run game. So I'd expect Jason Sanders, their kicker, actually to be pretty well in this as well. I would actually be fading that Miami run game. You're probably going to get really popular Jeff Wilson and really popular Jalen Wright in this, especially if Achane doesn't play. Those would be massive fades for me in this particular game. If Achane does play, I am avoiding all 3 running backs at all costs. I think Achane's just going to be used in the pass game. And then those other 2 guys are going to be used in the run game. They would have to score a touchdown in order for you to get any sort of return value in your island game matchups there. So for me, I'm sticking with that Buffalo pass game. Obviously, Josh Allen looks like he should be very effective. He also does run it in. He is probably my favorite for an MVP candidate in here just because there's no funnel target for Buffalo in that particular offense, and then grabbing a few of their pass catchers and bringing it back with Miami and their pass catching options there. Hill and Waddle would be my best bets there. Obviously, they're going to be super expensive, so getting some of these cheaper options from Buffalo, including Mac Hollins, who I think could be a surprising play in that particular number 1 spot. If you go into your leaderboard and see who that is, you might just be having a Mac Hollins on his particular team leading the way. So that's going to do it for this Thursday Night Theory. Hopefully you learned a little bit about what these numbers mean. Just to give a heads up, these pace of play numbers are not accurate. These are as of last year. I will have accurate numbers for the main slate one that comes out later this week, so keep an eye on that. Game time is accurate here. It's just the pace of play is not, and we're not really going to get into that in this particular session. So hopefully, again, you learned a little bit about how these numbers work, how to pit them against each other. We basically have the numbers lined up, split into pass and rush game, and then that's how it works. Hopefully you can use that information to make yourself a little bit of money. Maybe you disagree with my assessment of how the game's going to go based off of these numbers. Again, these are just the play in the trenches, offensive line versus defensive line. We always hear about how the game is won and lost in the trenches, and that's really what we're getting at with this particular looking at these scenarios with the defensive and offensive line play report. So hopefully, you'll earn a little bit of cash in there. You open it up twice, take all that money out, and go to the bank. All right. Well, thanks for watching, folks. Stay tuned for these Thursday Night Theories every Thursday, as long as I am home and can record that. And stay tuned for the main slate later this week. It should be out Friday, but some stuff might come out where it's going to come on Saturday afternoon, but we will have it for sure before you have to start setting your lineups on Sunday. Appreciate the view, folks. Have a good one, and good luck tonight in this island game. We're going to go win some money. Bye.